Hi everyone, it's Siobhan back again to read another story. I hadn't actually planned to do this, but I've had a few messages of children that's really enjoyed the story, Invisible String, that I read, I think it was a couple of weeks ago by Patricia Karst. So this week I've decided to read one of my favourite books, and it's Willy and the Wobbly House. So this book is for children or indeed adults that may be feeling a little bit wobbly or a little bit anxious at the minute or has been in the past. So hopefully you really enjoy this story, because I believe so many children got loads out of the last one and are still listening to it. So here's another one for you all to listen to. So, once there was a little boy called Willy who lived in a wobbly house where everything wobbled. The walls wobbled, the beds wobbled, and even the bathwater wobbled. And because the toilet wobbled, you had to be very careful and hold on tight so that you didn't fall in. When Willy's sister played with her doll's house, all the dolls wobbled over the edge and fell into Willy's box of cars. And that made Willy's cars very cross and grumpy. And at Christmas time, the Christmas tree in Willy's house wobbled so much that all the baubles and chocolate bears fell off, and even the fairy fell off. And because of all the wobbling in Willy's house, sometimes things fell right over and ended up broken on the floor. And on a very bad day of wobbling, it felt to Willy as if everything fell out of everything. Willy longed for something strong and calm that wouldn't wobble or fall over. So next door to Willy lived Joe. And Joe lived in a house with very straight edges. In Joe's garden, all the flowers were planted in nice neat rows. And in the kitchen in Joe's house, all the cans in the cupboards lined themselves up in very straight lines. And in the bedrooms in Joe's house, all the socks in the sock drawers were in nice neat pairs. But Joe longed for something to wobble. Anything would do. In fact, Joe's favourite food was jelly because it wobbled. Willy loved going to tea at Joe's house because he really liked straight lines. And Joe loved going to tea with Willy because he really liked things that wobbled. But there was a problem. Because Willy lived in a wobbly house, he often wobbled inside too. And even when he was at Joe's house, he couldn't really get rid of his wobbly feelings. And at school, Willy never seemed to be able to keep wobbly things out of his drawings. And sometimes he had a very frightening wobbly dreams where wobbly red jelly monsters hid in the corridors. And as for Joe, even when he did something that was supposed to be fun, he found that he couldn't really enjoy it because he felt like too much of a straight line himself. And at school, Joe couldn't stop drawing pictures of square boxes, which all had very straight lines. Well, said Willy, I guess I'll just have to put up with feeling wobbly for the rest of my life. Well, said Joe, I guess I'll just have to put up with feeling like a straight line for the rest of my life. Now at that moment, Mrs. Flop from the post office was passing by, and she heard Willy and Joe talking. If I may say, she said in a kindly voice, I think you've got that wrong. People don't have to put up with feeling what they don't want to feel. Have you heard of the puddle people who live behind the big red bin in the park? They will help you to feel differently. But remember, you won't be able to see them unless you say the magic word. Whizzle waffle. So off went Willy and Joe, and they found the big red bin in the park, and behind it was a puddle. They knew it was magic puddle because it made funny little puddle sounds. Whizzle waffle, said Willy in a wobbly voice. Whizzle waffle, said Joe in a straight, clear voice. And sure enough, out popped a very nice puddle person. "Hello," he said. "Welcome to the land of little pools. I guess you've come to see the Puddle King and Queen, haven't you? I'm sure they'll be able to help you." And before they knew it, Willy and Joe had dived right into that puddle behind the big red bin in the park. Suddenly they found themselves in a most beautiful place. Wherever they looked, they saw beautiful, sparkling pools. And before them stood two puddle people, who were clearly Puddle King and Puddle Queen, because they were very king and queen-like, and they both wore gold umbrellas for hats. Now Puddle King and Queen seemed to understand all about Willy's wobbly problems and Joe's straight problems. But they wanted to know more. So Willy told them how sometimes he felt frightened living in his wobbly house because he didn't know what might fall over next. And Joe said how he was bored in his straight line house because everything got tidied away, and sometimes he felt a bit tidied away as well. So Puddle King and Queen listened very carefully, and the Puddle Queen took Willy by the hand and said that she would like to show him the little pool called Still. Willy had liked Puddle Queen from the start because she was very, very calm, a very calm puddle lady, and because he liked her gold umbrella hat. As soon as Willy saw Still, he thought it was quite the best place he had ever seen in his wobbly life. There was a wonderful warm breeze, and pale green trees were singing to the most beautiful, gentle music he had ever heard. Puddle people were floating on top of the clear blue water, which rocked them softly side to side. And lots of little puddle babies were sleeping happily in their puddle parents' arms. To tell you the truth, Willy was feeling a bit sleepy himself, so he climbed into Puddle Queen's arms, and Puddle Queen held Willy in her arms, her big strong arms that didn't wobble at all, and Willy felt safe and still for the first time in his life. He fell asleep all snuggled there in the Puddle Queen and had lovely dreams about pillows and marshmallows. In the meantime, Puddle King had taken Joe to another pool called Giggle Pool. Here the water was very busy and bubbly. It kept sloshing and splashing and spilling all over the place. Lots of puddle people were bouncing on the bubbles with glee and bumping into each other and getting into puddle people muddles. The puddle people said to Joe, "Come and play with us in the bubbles." Joe says he didn't quite know how to. In fact, he felt a bit anxious because bouncing on bubbles didn't seem to have anything to do with straight lines. So the puddle people showed Joe what to do. And after a while, Joe started to feel all the straight lines inside him wiggle a little. And some of them even started to melt into something rather soft and wavy. And then Joe began to laugh. And he laughed and laughed as he had never laughed in his life before. And after that, whenever Joe started to feel too much like a straight line, and whenever Willy felt too wobbly, they'd go to that special puddle behind the big red bin in the park, and they'd visit the land of little pools. And whenever they did, they felt much better. So there you are to all the boys and girls, and hopefully you enjoy the story of Willy and the Wobbly House, because it's one of my favourite stories. So take care, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye.